thì Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry, MC, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. So good morning again, everyone. I'm happy that you've joined me. I'm happy that you can hear me this morning. My name is Folian Tate, and I am one of the Public Relations and Marketing Officers here at the Caribbean Examinations Council, and I will be moderating today's event. It is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of our stakeholders joining us online this morning for our public information session. During this session, we will be sharing details of the modified approach, which will be used in the grading of CXC Mathematics candidates for the May-June 2023 examination session. I'd like to first acknowledge today's panelists from CXC, Dr. Nicole Manning, Director of Operations, and Mr. Alton McPherson, Senior Manager of the Examinations Development and Production Department. I also want to acknowledge representatives of regional ministries of education, members of CXC's council, our CXC executives, management, and staff. As the result of discovery of a breach of the 2023 May-June CXC Mathematics Paper 2, the Caribbean Examinations Council announced on the 19th of May that the Paper 2 would be eliminated and the modified approach would be used to grade candidates. Today's session is an opportunity for us to engage you, our stakeholders, to share details of the grading methodology behind the CXC modified approach and its application, but also to hear your comments and questions. We will begin today with a video presentation of the modified approach by Mr. McPherson. This video was shared online ahead of today's presentation. After the video, we will have our question and answer segment utilizing the Q&A feature of Zoom rather than the chat. For those of you following on our website or YouTube page, you may submit your questions on our CXC website. That location is www.cxc.org/mod-approach-2. You can also find that link on our social media platforms. Now, let's begin our video presentation.
The objectives of this video are to provide an understanding of the weightings of paper and profiles for CXC Mathematics under normal circumstances, to demonstrate how profile scores are determined from weightings of paper and profiles table for the modified approach as applied to CXC Mathematics. Understanding the weighting of paper and profiles. Let us take another look at the table in the CXC Mathematics syllabus, page 5, under the caption, Weighting of Paper and Profiles. The maximum score to be earned by a candidate is 200 marks. The knowledge profile contributes 30% of the candidate's final grade. The comprehension profile contributes 40%, and reasoning contributes 30%. Though paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3 contribute 30%, 50%, and 20% respectively. For the purpose of grading, the paper contribution is not as important as the profile contribution, since CXC grades on profiles and not paper. The modified approach. Owing to the breach of the CXC Mathematics Paper 2 examination, the scores from the Paper 2 will not be used in grading the subject. Let us remove Paper 2 from the assessment grid. The knowledge profiles contribution remains 30% of the candidate's final grade. The comprehension profiles contribution remains 40% and reasoning remains 30%. This means that the overall contribution remains the same with paper 02 removed. In the case of the paper contribution with paper 2 removed, paper 1 and paper 3 now contribute 60% and 40% respectively. Like the normal grading process, when grading under the modified approach, the paper contribution is not as important as the profile contribution, since CXC grades on profiles and not paper. Now let us convert the profiles column to a row. Then convert the total column to a row. The total column now becomes the maximum score for each profile. Each profile has letter grades A to F in the case of CXC. Let us change the word total to composite, which is the preferred term by CXC at grading. CXC has a 6-point grading system grades 1 to 6. Each grade band within each grading system has a specific cut-off point. CXC does not make cut-offs public, so the purpose of this presentation, let us assume that the minimum score a candidate may earn in order to be awarded a grade 3, the lowest acceptable grade, is 70%, which is translated to 70 marks out of the available maximum of 100 marks, the total for CXC Mathematics. Now work backwards to determine the cutoffs for the other grades. Using a consistent difference of 10% between each cutoffs for each grade band, we get 80% or 80 marks at grade 2, 90% or 90 marks at grade 1, 60% or 60 marks at grade 4, 50% or 50 marks at grade 5, and less than 50% or less than 50 marks at grade 6. So, now that we have established the maximum score for each profile, max row, and we have established the cutoffs for each grade, according to the columns composite, grade, and cutoff, we need to complete the table by establishing the minimum for each profile grade. For the knowledge profile, profile grade has a minimum of 90% times 30, which is cutoff associated with grade 1 times the profile max, equal 27. In the case of comprehension profile, profile grade A has a minimum of 90% times 40, cutoff associated with grade 1 times the profile max, equal 36. In the case of the reasoning profile, profile grade A has a minimum of 90% times 30, which is cutoff associated with grade 1 times the profile max, equal 27. Again, for the knowledge profile, profile grade B has a minimum of 80% times 30, which is the cutoff associated with grade 2 times the profile max, equal 24. In the case of comprehension profile, profile grade B has a minimum of 80% times 40, which is the cutoff associated with grade 2 times the profile max, equals 32. In the case of reasoning profile, profile grade B has a minimum of 80% times 30, cutoff associated with grade 2 times the profile max, which is 24. Again, for the knowledge profile, profile grade C has a minimum of 70% times 30, equal 21. In the case of comprehension profile, profile grade C has a minimum of 70% times 40, equal 28. In the case of reasoning profile, profile grade B has a minimum of 80% times 30. Continuing with this logic, we complete the table. So from the table, the maximum composite score for the subject is 100 marks with paper 2 removed. The maximum score for knowledge and reasoning is 30 marks. The maximum score for comprehension is 40 marks. Each profile has a letter grade A to F, as this is for a CSEC subject. Each letter grade is associated with a range of scores that contributes to the final grade awarded. That is, for knowledge and reasoning, A ranges from 27 marks to 30 marks. B ranges from 24 marks to 26 marks. C ranges from 21 marks to 23 marks, and so on. And for comprehension, A ranges from 36 marks to 40 marks. B ranges from 32 marks to 35 marks. C ranges from 28 marks to 31 marks, and so on. Now, based on this information, a candidate should appreciate the following. CSEC candidates are reminded that the acceptable grade bands remain as follows. Profile grades D, E, and F are not allowed for grade 1. Profile grades E and F are not allowed for grade 2 and grade 3. The Caribbean Examinations Council, as always, is committed to the award of valid and comparative results and has the requisite systems in place for the assurance that candidates' results are a true reflection of their efforts.
Thank you. That concludes our video presentation. So at this time, Dr. Manning and Mr. McPherson will be responding to the questions we've received. To remind you, persons on Zoom are asked to use the Q&A feature rather than the chat. For those of you following on our website or YouTube page, you may submit your questions on our website. That location is www.cxc.org/mod-approach-2. You can also find that link on our social media platforms. So we'll go to our first question, and that is, in considering the scores that candidates attained in SBAs versus the scores attained in paper 3, how will CXC deal with this bias? Taking into consideration that the SBAs are guided over a period of time by teachers and paper 3s are done by the candidates alone under examination conditions. So I will turn that one over to Mr. McPherson.
Thank you for your question. Paper 3 are designed to be equivalent to the SBA. Though one is guided, the other is done under examination conditions. Any bias existing between the two papers would not necessarily affect a candidate's grade, as each candidate is graded on the scores or paper actually done during administration of the test.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. Our second question, what percentage of students this year passed the maths exam? And I will turn that one over to Dr. Manning.
Thank you very much. Good morning. So as we complete the process of grading, that information will be shared at the release of results as we would have done in previous years. So that information will be available, will be made available to the public on the 24th of August.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Was a sample of the SBA remarked? What percentage will now be allocated towards the SBA? Mr. McPherson, if you can help us with that one.
Thanks again. A sample of SBA has been remarked for all teacher, all centers across the region. The percentage for, as in the video, the percentage of the final grade being associated with the SBA is 40%. This does not influence your grade, as CXC will grade on profiles and not on the paper.
Thank you for that. Our next question, are the cutoff scores to be used this year going to be the same as normal, as in when paper 2 is included? Or will the grade bands be adjusted for the 2023 session? Mr. McPherson?
You can appreciate that since the cutoffs is actually on a scale, and the total score for the exam has changed, then it means that new cutoffs must be determined for the 2023 candidates who sat CXC Mathematics.
Thank you again, Mr. McPherson. Another question. Are those allegations of the paper ones for few subjects that were stolen true? How will you work to grade those papers? I'll take that one to Dr. Manning.
Thank you very much for the question. Where we had the paper one scripts for the math paper ones that would have been stolen from the school in question, those candidates would have been given the opportunity to rewrite a new paper. And so the candidates, a new paper one, and so those candidates would be graded like all other candidates because they would have scripts for paper one and the SBA scores for paper one, as well as the scores for the SBAs.
Thank you. The next question we have, how do you find the 3 profile scores from the paper 2 not being there? Mr. McPherson, can you help us with that one?
All 3 profiles exist in all 3 papers.
That was straightforward. How would CXC know the profile scores for each candidate on paper 1 if an OMR is used?
Each item on paper 1 is tagged to a profile. So whether it is marked by hand or by an OMR, the profiles are captured.
Thank you. We had a very simple question, whether this recording will be available, and the answer to that is yes. We have a question about the release of results, and those are scheduled for the 24th of August.
Drop in.
We have an interesting question. Does CXC expect to see a drop in performances? And I'll turn that over to Dr. Manning.
So thank you for the question. Grading and the marking and grading process for CXC is an objective process managed each year in relation to the submission of the work done by candidates. So whether it's going to be an improvement or reduction, that's really something that will be determined after the process is completed. And that information will be shared on August 24th.
Thank you. Okay, we have a question here. Every year, we hear rumors about papers being leaked. What systems are being implemented going forward to ensure that leaks do not occur?
Thank you for that question. So in relation to the management of security, increase in the security of papers, this is being managed at different levels. And I must say one of the first and important points to make is the move to electronic testing. It is a strategy that CXC has started commenced in terms of utilization, and we have seen benefits from it, as well as we have the collaboration with our local registrars, which we continue to enhance, strengthen as it is, as we would have done in the past also. We have new systems in terms of the improvement in terms of those quality requirements, and that's something that will be shared with in the future. As well as where we have a breach, it must be noted that we have changes in the utilization of those centers in the future. So it affects the center also. So it is that we do encourage that this is something that persons do not continue to do. But of course, we know that it affects our candidates as a whole. So together as a region, we need to take serious thinking in relation to what is done where this is concerned. But CXC is implementing new systems, and more so the electronic utilization, electronic testing of assessment is where we want to go and where we have been going.
Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. Our next question: why are results being released so late? This is significantly affecting students who are continuing to tertiary education, as the academic year is slated to commence at the end of August.
Thank you for that question. So this is a matter that CXC is looking into in relation to the release of results. We actually have an additional time that is provided to candidates in relation to submission of their SBAs. And it is a part of the review for us in relation to those dates. We have what we call the submission date, as well as an absolute deadline for submission. And in order to take this into consideration, we will have to review those SBA submission dates. So yes, it is something that we will address in our 2024 year. So yes, we would have heard, and we are addressing that particular matter. I want us to also note that we have to get all of the scripts, whether it be SBAs, paper 2s, and paper 1 scripts, we have to have everything in-house in order to start the process. So it is important that we look at the deadlines for all of those three.
Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. The next question we'll look at is, why are all the islands being penalized if there were leaks in only a few islands?
So I cannot respond to the leaks in only a few islands, because one of the things that needs to be very clear is that when you have a breach, and in this case, the breach of the paper 2, this was shared in quite a few islands. With the new digital age, what we have found is that the movement of information is far greater and faster than you would have had in the past. So the question would have been, which candidate in another territory would have seen the paper versus where it would have been generated? Initial leak would have occurred. So it is something that we have to take into consideration. We're in the digital age, and so we're not penalizing one territory or two territories or the region for one territory. We have to look at it in an objective manner where all territories may have had the opportunity to see the paper. And we do know that other territories would have had the paper. It would have been shared in other territories, but given especially, also the digital age, we cannot say that all 19 territories that participate in our exams would have gotten access to that paper. So for fairness, we have to assume that all territories would have had that option to see. We're not saying that everyone did, but that's the assumption you have to take.
And thank you for that response, Dr. Manning. Okay, let's look at another question. What procedures does CXC use to determine the cutoff scores?
Under normal circumstances, as criteria reference, CXC has established cut scores. However, from time to time, situations may arise, and in those circumstances, CXC employs the use of the modified ANGOF standard setting approach to determine the cutoff scores. For the modified approach, with the removal of a paper, the Hieronymus scaling technique coupled with the borderline group approach is used to determine cutoffs.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. We have another question. Please comment on the grade compression or inversion risk, which is amplified by the modified grading approach, as evidenced by the 2020 grading crisis, as advised by our external independent exam consultants. What assurance is given that this challenge does not occur or reoccur for CXC Maths 2023, CSEC Maths 2023 modified approach?
Thank you for that question. So based on the model that we would have used and will be using, and especially in consultation, especially after consultation with our review team, CXC will say at this time that we're not expecting to have this challenge. We have done our analyses, as Mr. McPherson would have even highlighted just now, in relation to the methodology, and we have provided a full documentation on the methodology. It's on our website, and I would want to invite persons to really look at it. It's a scientifically approved and proven methodology. For the math exam, we are not expecting to have any issues. We have done our analysis in-house, and we have not, in terms of our initial analysis, we're not seeing any changes that we are expecting. Now, we have to understand that in relation to this one subject, in terms of where we would have had the explanation that was shared, with the increased and improved quality we would have taken, and of course, as I said before, the greater details in terms of what we would have done to ensure that what was perceived in terms of what would have perceived for 2020. I want to assure candidates that you won't have a challenge. I want to also add that we take into consideration any issues when we are doing grading, in terms of the hardships, any other irregularities that may have occurred similar to the CSEC math. We also take that into consideration. So be assured that there will be no challenge with the grading of the CSEC math 2023 exams using the modified approach.
Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. What is the pass mark for mathematics for this 2023 sitting? Is it grade 5?
The minimum acceptable grade is grade 3, and it remains grade 3.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any concerns that the stolen scripts would have been leaked to other candidates in the country in question or other countries?
Thank you for that question. So access to scripts this matter, let me just say firstly, and first and foremost, this matter is under investigation with the police, and CXC will make the necessary decisions based on the output from that. And all of these decisions will be made before we release results on the 24th. So the matter is still under investigation in particular country. I want to also just add quickly, I'm seeing a question regarding release of results. All results will be released on the 24th of August, not only including the math, CSEC Math 2023 results.
Thank you. Is there a reason why a supplemental paper 2 was not used this year, as would have been done in previous years?
So the decision not to administer another paper 2 was really on the basis of the candidates. So based on the one, we would have had solicitation from territories in relation to the administration of another paper 2. It was seen and it was perceived that we would have been putting candidates through too much to do another paper. And secondly, given the fact that we have a scientifically proven methodology that is that can be utilized, we thought it would have been better to make that decision to use the modified approach. It is tried and proven, and hence the decision would have been made in line, of course, one, with the candidates in mind, and two, of course, with the fact that we can provide fair and valid grades with our modified approach.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. Okay, we'll take another question here. Someone is expressing concerns about deadlines for scholarship applications and also applications to universities, and they want to know what action can be taken.
Okay, so we want to indicate that there is an early, the universities, so candidates, let me go back, sorry. Candidates who may need their results a bit earlier, they may ask the university, one, they can apply online for the early submission of their grades, as well as we're saying they need to go through the university. So they need to ask the university to make that request of CXC. So we do have partnerships, I must also add. And where we have the partnerships, like for example, I think I'm seeing here the University of Guyana being mentioned, where we have the partnerships and where the request would have been made to the university for the university to access the results from CXC, the university will indicate to CXC that they are requiring the result of this particular candidate. So let me hasten to say that for example, you have mentioned University of Guyana, that they can request your results from CXC. That's one. And two, there is a facility online from CXC where you can make that request. Folian, you probably can give that additional information at the end.
Certainly. Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. So we're revisiting an earlier question. The person is asking, given that 12% of the marks for knowledge come from the SBA or paper 3, 16% for comprehension comes from the SBAR paper 3, and 12% for application comes from the SBAR paper 3. And in total, 40% of the marks come from the SBAR paper 3. How will CXC deal with this bias when these two papers are done under different conditions? I'll give that one over to Mr. McPherson.
Thank you, Poland. Leon seemed to be questioning if the 12% is from SBA, or candidate sitting SBA, 12% from a candidate sitting paper 3-2, which is the alternative to SBA. Earlier indicated that if paper 3-2 is designed to cover or be equivalent to what is done for the SBA. Now, whilst we understand that they are done under different conditions, there are scaling techniques that are used to accommodate the bias in the scores between the two papers under various conditions. I hope that suffices.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. We have a question here about electronic assessment or e-testing. What percentage of the region has migrated to the electronic testing? Is it easier to grade the electronic testing? Also, can the SBAs be done electronically? Dr. Manning, do you want to address this one?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So two points on that question. One, in relation to the SBA being done electronically, that's managed within the schools because SBAs are submitted electronically. So all SBAs are submitted electronically. Well, except of course the sciences where we do on-site moderation, but for the ones that are written, they are submitted electronically. So that answers that part of the question. In relation to the electronic testing, of course, over 50% of the region does electronic testing. What we are trying to encourage is all of the territories, all centers within all territories to be engaged in electronic testing. So we may have 19 territories, and if we had all 19 doing e-testing, what we really need, and it can be one center within each territory. That's not what we want. What we're trying to achieve is all territories doing all E. At this particular time, yes, we have over 50% doing electronic testing, but in terms of the cohort of electronic testing, we would say that's about 30%. We can give further information in that regard at the release.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. We have a question for students who didn't have the chance to write Maths Paper 1 in Trinidad because of the flooding. Was there something in place for those who were affected?
So just to note that CXC did offer an alternate paper to the candidates who were flooded in Trinidad and Tobago, and they did participate, and it was done electronically. So none of those candidates would have been negatively impacted. Those, of course, that would have been reported to us regarding the flooding.
Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. Another question here for Dr. Manning. Aren't the SBA absolute deadlines before the written exams? How is it that SBAs can cause a delay in the release of grades?
So just to note, and this is something, as I said before, we'll be addressing next year, the absolute deadline is not before the written examinations. And the date is actually currently after. So hence, it will affect the delay in the release of the grades, yes.
Thank you. The next question, we'll give this one to Mr. McPherson. Can you give some more details about how CXC came up with this marking scheme? And will it be something CXC will keep in its arsenal for future leagues?
What is the person referring to as marking scheme? In order to respond clearly, I need clarification on that question.
Okay, so some further clarification needed on that one, if that person wants to submit some further details. Our next question, what proportion of items on paper 1 can be regarded as anchor items?
Yes, that is around 25%.
All right, thank you, Mr. McPherson. We have another question here about e-testing. The widespread distribution of the exam paper electronically indicated that the majority of candidates have access to technology. Why hasn't CXC started regional e-testing?
Thank you for that question. So yes, CXC has started regional electronic testing. All candidates have the opportunity, all centers, candidates have the opportunity of doing their exams electronically. This is something that we are collaborating with our ministries of education to enhance, increase, improve, and have greater access to the candidates. There is the opportunity also in terms of bring your own device. We do have that as one of our policies. So it is something that I know the ministries of education, they're working on, and we are having greater collaboration in making it happen. But yes, CXC has given the opportunity for e-testing to be done right across the region. All territories, all centers have that opportunity.
So the next question we'll look at, can results be sent to the school institution directly?
So for this particular question, yes, it can be sent to the institution, your tertiary institution of choice. There just needs to be a request for a transcript, and those details are on our website. It's a very easy process, and the school or institution can receive in a very short time.
Thank you for that one, Dr. Manning. The next question we'll go to, would there ever be supplemental exams that candidates can utilize when there are issues such as natural disasters that may affect only one country in a particular instance?
So thanks for that question. We have had instances, where in the past where we would have had natural disasters in a particular country, and we would have provided exams for that country. For example, in 2021, when we had the volcanic eruption in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we did provide exams for those particular candidates. They were not negatively affected or impacted in any way.
Thank you. We have a question here the person was asking for further details on early results. So I just wanted to touch base on that one. For university or college applications, it is possible to make an early results request via the CXC website. This allows results to be sent quickly to universities or colleges when preliminary examination results are released. During the checkout process, in the notes section on that form on our website, please indicate that this is an early release request to facilitate that expedited process. This year, the deadline for the submission of early results release requests is Thursday, the 17th of August.
So just a little follow-up here to Dylan Deschamps, where he's noting that he meant the modified approach. How did CXC come up with it? I will encourage that Dylan takes a look at the full paper that CXC has produced and submitted it's on our website. It is labeled the modified approach, and it has all the details in relation to the modified approach. So it will give you the background and everything in relation to that.
The next question we have is, if all SBAs are now moderated and remarked by moderators, why are teachers still required to mark the SBAs? I'll turn that one over to Mr. McPherson.
All right, the question as if all SBAs are not moderated. What is moderated is a sample from all teachers in all centers. So CXC does not remark all SBAs. A sample is moderated. So teachers are still expected to mark, and SBA is not a final exam. It's continuous assessment, and it's to be done over 2 years in the case of CSEC and 1 year in the case of D.
So we have another comment here about e-testing. E-testing can only work if the school's IT infrastructure devices, access, and Wi-Fi capability, etc., can support the same. Surely security will still be an issue as 100% hard copy paper backup for e-testing will be required for some time.
Mhm. Thank you for that question. So yes, of course, that's why we mentioned collaboration with the Ministries of Education. That statement is correct, that the infrastructure will have to be in place. And that's why collaboration is going to be key. And we continue to do that. We do provide at this particular time, the printed paper. That is something and that's one of the reasons to why we need for the greater take up, the more reliance and reliable, I should say, infrastructure that needs to be in place. We are looking at other offline solutions that can help both the territories, the schools, as well as ensure that we improve and increase the e-testing that is done. So we are looking at other solutions, but at this time, the method that is used is offering of e-testing, where the schools and the territories are able to manage and to implement. And secondly, we also do the printing of the papers, but it is the best solution is to ensure that we have an offline option for those schools that have that issue in terms of not having the sufficient infrastructure in place. So it is something that we are working with the territories to resolve.
Thank you for that, Dr. Manning. So we have a question about SBAs. Sorry, I lost my place there for a moment. How is it that some schools allow their students to do certain SBAs in groups while others don't?
So the syllabus has outlined how the SBAs can be done. So the options at the school level, the center level, that's really a discussion at the school level. So there are options in terms of whether the candidates are allowed to do it in groups or not. So that's really a teaching and learning question. I would encourage this individual to have a conversation at the school level. And I would encourage that parents make sure that you have a copy of the syllabus so that you can have that informed discussion with the centers also.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. We'll go to our next question here. Schools usually don't receive comprehensive reports on how students do on questions on paper 2 and even on SBAs as other subject areas as English language arts. These reports usually assist teachers in knowing which questions were done poorly by students and in knowing how they marked an SBA, Is there a reason why mathematics reports on written papers and SBAs are not given by CXC?
So the subject reports that are on our platform, various platforms, particularly the Learning Hub at this time, and which will be on our website, we are encouraging you to utilize those subject reports. That's where you have the details in relation to the performance and proper sample answers for questions on the exams. Regarding the SBAs, I must say that CXC sends a report to the centers through our local registrars. So they do have access to well, I should say through our online platform, sorry, with details in relation to how candidates would have performed in the SBAs. So that is another area that I will encourage at the center level, that you have that conversation. If it is that you're having an issue accessing those reports, just make contact with your local registrar and they will guide you accordingly. The list of local registrars are also on our website, so I will encourage that you make yourself, and if you're not familiar with that, I'll also say make yourself familiar with that. So just to make it clear that the subject reports are on our platforms, and we can probably push out something through our social media in relation to that, as well as for the SBAs, reports are sent to the centers in relation to how candidates perform for each of the subjects that they would have been engaged in.
Thank you, Dr. Manning. We had a question: does the cutoff line for the grades change depending on how the region does? The simple answer there would be no. We have a question regarding subject reports. So the person says, subject reports for mathematics on the Learning Hub have not been updated since 2020.
So let's just look at that. From our knowledge, it would have been updated, but we're, of course, as our stakeholders, we're taking nothing for granted. So we will review that. I think the question is from Nicholas Goldberg. We will review and ensure that you have the updated documents there. And as I said before, we'll push something to our social media to ensure that it's feeding to you and you have greater visibility where that is concerned.
Thank you, Dr. Manning.
There it was.
Okay, so while we have some additional questions coming in, some of those questions have been asked a little earlier, so we will have this recording available for persons asking us to recap the modified approach. The video is also available online on our social media platforms, so we encourage you to visit our official social media platforms on our website to see the video and get those details again. So at this point, we want to conclude our session. I want to thank everyone who joined us here on Zoom or viewed the session online. And thank you, of course, to all the persons who submitted questions, as these really help to drive the discussion and provided opportunities for further elaboration. I would like to thank Dr. Manning and Mr. McPherson for leading the session and giving insight into that modified approach that we will be using to grade our candidates this year for the CXC Mathematics, and helping our stakeholders to have a better understanding. I wish you all a safe day, and we look forward to you joining us again on CXC TV next month for our release of results ceremony.